First story. The soil remembers what we bury. My name is Travis Murdock. I'm from a place you've never heard of, Dry Creek Hollow, Nebraska. One of those one-road towns with more dogs than people and a church that's always locked. I left that place when I was 18, never looked back. Until this spring. My cousin Jesse called me after 16 years of silence. He said, "You need to come back. Something's happening out here. People are seeing things in the fields." I told him he was drunk. He probably was. But then he said something that stopped me cold. "It's about your mother. She died when I was 10. Everyone said it was cancer, but I never saw her body. They didn't even have a funeral, just a closed casket and whispers." I packed a bag and drove all night. Dry Creek Hollow hadn't changed. Same rusting grain silo, same boarded up gas station. But there was something off. Like the sky was too low, like the ground was listening. Jesse lived in our old family house. I pulled up to find him on the porch, shotgun in hand, face pale like paper. "You shouldn't have come," he said, "but I guess it's too late now." That night, he told me everything. He said it started with the ground. Cracks opening up in the fields, deep ones, wider than any fault line. Crops stopped growing. Then the animals started disappearing. Coyotes, dogs, even cattle. "And then people," Jesse whispered. I laughed. I shouldn't have. "You think this is funny? I think you've been drinking moonshine again." He threw something at me, a photo. It was blurry, but it showed a human figure crawling out of a fissure in the cornfield. Skin black as oil, no eyes, no mouth. But I recognized the locket around its neck, my mom's. I didn't sleep. The next day, I walked out to the back field where Mom used to plant tomatoes. There was no garden anymore, just cracked earth and something worse, a smell, like old blood and burnt hair. And then I saw it, a hole, roughly 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, like a grave, but it had been dug from the inside out. I called Jesse. He didn't answer. I ran back to the house, blood on the walls, shotgun on the floor, but no Jesse. Instead, there were muddy footprints, bare, leading upstairs. I followed them. My old bedroom door was open. Inside, the walls were covered in writing. Black ash smeared into words, "She's beneath us." The roots know. "You left her." That night, I dreamed of her, my mother, but she wasn't right. Her eyes were wrong. Her smile split too wide. She kept repeating, "I waited, Travis. I waited in the dirt." I woke up choking on soil. I tried to leave town the next morning. Car wouldn't start, tires slashed, no cell signal. I walked into town, but it was empty. Not quiet, empty, like everyone had just vanished. Then the church bell rang, the church that hadn't opened its doors in 20 years. I ran toward it. The door creaked open before I touched it. Inside, it was dark, candles lit by invisible hands. The altar had been replaced with a pit, deep and black. I could hear something breathing inside it. A voice whispered, "Say her name." I refused. The floor split beneath me. I fell into dirt, wet, living dirt that pressed into my mouth, my ears, my eyes. And then I saw her. My mother. Whole, but wrong. Roots wrapped around her like veins. Her skin bark, her hair worms. She spoke without moving her mouth. "We don't bury the dead here. We plant them." I screamed. She kissed my forehead, and I saw every buried secret of this place. What my family did, what the soil remembers, what grows when you lie too long in the earth. I don't know how long I've been here. The field doesn't let you leave, not if you have hollow blood. Jesse's here too now. So is the sheriff. And Mr. Connor from the feed store. They crawl at night. They whisper in the rows. If you come to Dry Creek Hollow, don't follow the voices. Don't dig, don't listen. The soil remembers, and now, so do I. Second story. The silence that screamed from Willow Creek. My name is Benjamin Cross. I was born in Albany, New York, but in the summer of 2023, I inherited a decaying farmhouse in Willow Creek, a forgotten village buried somewhere in the hills of rural Pennsylvania. I didn't even know the place existed until a lawyer called me about my great-uncle Everett's will. No family members volunteered to take it, so I thought, why not? I had just gone through a divorce. I needed a change. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I could breathe. But I didn't know silence could scream. Willow Creek wasn't on most maps. You had to exit I-79, drive past the last gas station for 30 miles, and then take a cracked, winding road through thick forest. The locals, maybe a dozen families total, were quiet, pale, suspicious. They barely looked at me when I arrived. One old man at the only store in town whispered, "Shoulda let that house rot." The house itself looked like it had been coughing dust for decades. 2 stories, lopsided porch, vines crawling up broken windows like skeletal fingers. Inside, every board creaked underfoot, and every room smelled like something long dead. But it was mine. The first night, I heard scratching. Not mice in the walls scratching. More like someone tracing symbols into the wood with nails. I called out, "Hello?" but no reply. Just silence that felt thick. The second night, I found a room in the attic I hadn't seen before. The door wasn't locked, just stuck, like the wood didn't want to open. Inside, there was a rocking chair, a child's dress hanging from the ceiling like it had been nailed there, and on the wall, carved deeply, "We do not forget." By the 4th day, I started dreaming of things that weren't mine. A woman screaming in a barn, a child running barefoot into the forest, a fire swallowing a wooden chapel. I woke up drenched in sweat, and always to the same sound, that faint scratching. I asked around town. No one would talk to me. Not until I met Clara Bell. She was in her 80s, lived in a trailer near the creek. She only agreed to speak if I came at dusk and promised to leave before nightfall. She told me Willow Creek had been cursed since 1959, when a preacher named Elijah Griggs led his congregation into the woods for a ritual to bring back the voice of God. They were never seen again. Only their shadows returned. She said my great-uncle Everett had been one of them. She also said, "If you hear the house breathing, leave." I didn't understand what she meant until I woke up one night to the sound of inhaling. Not snoring, not wind, breathing. Slow, deliberate, wet, like the house had lungs. I ran downstairs. Every window was open, though I had locked them. The front door was shut and nailed from the inside. Then came the whisper, "Join us." I turned. No one. Then again, louder, "Join us." I grabbed my keys, bolted for the back door. It was gone. Not locked, not broken, just gone, like it had never existed. The walls had shifted. The hallway led in circles. The house wouldn't let me leave. For 2 days, maybe more, time was broken. I wandered room to room screaming, smashing windows that turned into mirrors, opening doors that led to the same room again and again. I found a diary in the kitchen drawer, Everett's. It read, "The house needs a keeper. The silence must be fed." I knew then. I was the offering. I tried to fight it. I tried to stay awake. But the longer I stayed, the less I remembered. My name, my past, my voice. And then one night I heard the doorbell. That sound, it snapped me back. I answered. A man stood there, holding a briefcase. He said, "Hi, I'm with Harrison Wynn Legal. You're the only living relative of Benjamin Cross. You've inherited a property in Willow Creek." I tried to speak, tried to scream. But all I did was smile, because the house had taught me silence. And now it was my turn to keep it fed. Third story. The silence that came from Coldwater Hollow. My name is Eric Dalhart. I'm a documentary filmmaker from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I've spent the last 5 chasing stories most people are too scared to even speak about. But there's one story I never included in any of my projects. Not because it wasn't real, God knows it was, but because just thinking about it still makes me sweat through my shirt at night. It started with a letter. I got it in the mail one quiet Thursday morning. No return address, just my name written in shaky block letters and a small wax seal on the flap, dark green with a barely visible image of an old pine tree. Inside was a folded piece of yellowed notebook paper. "If you want the truth, come to Coldwater Hollow. Ask for Alma." No explanation, no details. Just those words and a map of some nowhere town in the middle of Kentucky. I looked it up. Coldwater Hollow wasn't even listed on Google Maps. Most people would have tossed that letter in the trash. But I didn't. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something deeper I still don't understand. I packed my gear, charged my cameras, and drove down the winding Appalachian roads for 8 hours until I reached what the map called Coldwater Hollow. The sign was half buried in vines. Coldwater Hollow, founded 1834. Below it, someone had scratched in red paint, "Don't stay after dark." There were maybe a dozen houses scattered around a dried-up creek. Wooden porches, boarded windows, and not a single soul in sight. It felt wrong. like the whole town had been paused in time just after something horrible happened. I knocked on the first door. Nothing. The second, nothing. At the third, a woman in her late 60s answered. Thin, pale, with long gray hair and eyes that didn't blink enough. Alma? I asked. She nodded slowly, then stepped aside. You shouldn't have come. Her house smelled like earth and mothballs. The walls were lined with faded photographs, people with hollow eyes and forced smiles. She sat me down at a table and poured a cup of something that looked like tea but tasted like metal. Then she began talking, not in a scared way, in a numb way, like someone who had repeated the same story too many times. There's a sound in the hollow. It comes from the trees when the air gets too still. A humming, low, like a generator, but it ain't no machine. I asked her what it was. We don't know. We only know what it does. According to Alma, people used to go missing in Coldwater Hollow. Not often, once every few years. Always the same way, vanished without a trace. But the worst part wasn't the vanishing. It was the return. Sometimes, she said, they come back, but they ain't right. She showed me a photo of her husband, a strong man with a thick beard and smiling eyes. Then she showed me another photo. Same man, but thinner, vacant, with skin that looked almost waxy. He came back after 6 days, slept next to me for 2 nights. On the third night, I woke up and he was just standing over me, breathing, smiling. I asked her what happened next. I buried him behind the barn. It wasn't him anymore. I didn't believe her. Not really. I thought maybe she was just lonely, grieving, delusional, but I still stayed the night in an abandoned house nearby, just to film, just to see. That was my first mistake. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I heard it. A low hum, deep and resonant, like it was coming from beneath the floorboards. I grabbed my camera and stepped outside. The whole town was still. No wind, no animals, not even crickets. Then I saw them. Figures, maybe a dozen, walking slowly out of the woods. They didn't move like people. Their arms swayed wrong. Their heads tilted too far. And their eyes, they didn't have eyes, just black, weeping holes. I backed into the house, locked the door, and turned off all the lights. But they already knew I was there. They just stood outside, watching, not knocking, just watching. The humming grew louder. My ears started to bleed. Then, everything went silent. I woke up at dawn on the porch. My camera was gone. My car keys were snapped in half, and there was something carved into my arm. Stay with us. I ran, on foot, 10 miles through the woods before I found a gas station. When I told the clerk where I came from, he went pale. Coldwater Hollow? That place burned down 30 years ago. Ain't nothing there but trees. I told him I saw people. Then you saw what took them. I never found my camera, and I never went back. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear that hum again, and I see the shape of something standing in the corner of my room, watching, waiting. Fourth story, the scent of Pine Hollow. My name is Nathan Kellerman. I used to live in a small town in northern Maine called Pine Hollow, population barely over 100. If you've never heard of it, good. It's better that way. Some places deserve to be forgotten. I was 16 the last time I saw the town. That night still visits me in dreams, sweaty, heart-thudding, choking on air kind of dreams. I never went back. I never will. It started when my mom inherited my grandfather's cabin deep in the woods. She was the last living relative after he died alone, supposedly of natural causes, though no one ever found his body. Only his boots on the porch, a shotgun inside, and blood smeared across the floorboards. We moved into the cabin during fall. The trees were all gold and fire red, and the air smelled like damp moss and smoke. It felt wrong from the beginning. I kept catching the scent of rot, wet fur, burnt meat, coming from the woods. But only at night. The townsfolk were odd. They stared too long, spoke too softly, and avoided the woods like the plague. I asked around about my grandfather, but no one said anything helpful. Just vague phrases like, some bloodlines should end, and the forest takes what it gave. Then the knocking started. It would come at exactly 3:15 every morning. 3 slow knocks on the back door. Then silence. No footprints. No animals. Nothing. One night, I stayed up, shotgun in hand. When the knocking came, I yanked the door open. Nothing. Just trees. And silence so loud it made my ears ring. But when I turned back around, there was mud on the floor. bare footprints leading from the door into the kitchen, and then stopping. My mom didn't believe me, said I was imagining things, that grief messes with your mind. But I noticed how she locked her door at night and how she slept with the lights on. A week later, I followed the footprints into the woods. I left at dusk. The trees got thicker, darker, like they were swallowing sound. I walked for what felt like hours. No animals, no bugs, just that smell. Eventually, I found it. A clearing filled with dead pine trees, bark stripped clean. In the center stood an old wooden totem, a twisted, snarling thing with 6 eyes carved into its face. And bones. So many bones. I turned to run and heard a voice behind me. You're not supposed to leave. I swear it was my grandfather's voice. I ran. I tripped, fell, hit my head. When I came to, it was morning. The woods were normal again. Birds chirping, sunlight streaming through the branches. But something followed me back. That night, the knocking came again, louder. This time it didn't stop. It kept going. 3 knocks, then silence, then 3 more, then silence. My mom finally believed me. She broke down crying, told me the truth. Our family was cursed. My grandfather had made a deal, something about keeping the forest alive in exchange for blood. Each generation had to offer someone. He offered himself. But the forest rejected him. It wanted more. It wanted me. We tried to leave, packed everything, drove as fast as we could, but every road led back to the cabin. I swear to God, we took 5 different routes, and every one of them led back to that rotting porch. That night, the cabin burned down. I don't know how. Flames started from inside. We barely escaped. My mom drove until we hit a gas station 2 towns over. We never spoke of it again. Years passed. I moved to Ohio, got a job, tried to live a normal life. Until last week, I came home from work and the scent hit me. Damp moss, burnt meat, and mud. Footprints in my hallway. Then at 3:15 exactly, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 5th story, the silence that ate Coldwater Hollow. My name is Daniel Mercer. I grew up in a town no one really talks about, Coldwater Hollow, West Virginia. Not on the maps, not in the tourist guides. Hell, even Google Maps shows a blurry patch of trees when you search for it. But I lived there for the first 18 years of my life. And what happened one October evening, I still can't wrap my head around it. Coldwater Hollow wasn't much. A few dirt roads, a church that smelled like mold, and maybe 25 houses. Everyone knew everyone, or thought they did. I came back in late October of last year, after almost 15 years away. My mom passed, cancer, and left the house to me. I hadn't planned on returning. Not after the dreams, not after what we all agreed never to speak of. But grief makes you do strange things. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller than I remembered. Its paint had peeled back like scabs. The porch light was still hanging by a thread of copper wire, swinging gently though there was no wind. Inside, everything was still. Too still. It was like the walls had been holding their breath, waiting. I should have left then, but I didn't. I stayed the night. One night. That's when the silence started. It wasn't just quiet. It was wrong. Like the world had turned down the volume on purpose. You could scream and barely hear yourself. I tried. Trust me, I tried. I woke at exactly 3:07 a.m. to the sound of my own heartbeat, not in my chest, in the walls, a dull thumping echoing behind plaster and wood. I stepped out onto the porch, and that's when I saw the boy. He was standing in the middle of the road, barefoot, eyes too wide for his face, not blinking. I whispered, "Are you okay?" He didn't move, didn't flinch. Then he smiled. And I swear to you, that smile split too far, like his skin had never been meant to stretch that way. I ran back inside, locked every door. But when I turned around, he was already in the living room, just standing. "It's quiet here," he said. His voice sounded like someone mimicking a child, like something that had heard kids talk and was trying to pass. Then he vanished, just flickered out. I didn't sleep. The walls kept pulsing. I packed everything and was ready to leave by morning. But the road out didn't exist anymore. I'm serious. I followed my GPS and it led me back. Every single turn, I'd drive for miles, only to see my own house again. And then, the people came. Only it wasn't really people. They looked like the people I grew up with. Mrs. Harland, old Reverend Pike, even my high school girlfriend, Melissa. But their mouths never closed, their eyes never blinked, and they moved in perfect silence. No footfalls, no breath, just gliding toward the house. I stayed upstairs and watched through the attic vent. For 2 days, they just stood in the yard, watching, heads tilted, unmoving. On the third day, I screamed just to break the silence. They screamed back in perfect harmony, like they'd been waiting. It shattered the attic window. That night, I dreamt I was under the ground, not buried, absorbed, roots pushing through my skin, soil in my throat, and the silence was there too, thick, alive. When I woke, I wasn't in the attic anymore. I was back in the hallway of my childhood home. The boy was there again. "The hollow feeds on noise," he said. "You brought sound. You woke it up." I tried to speak, but my voice was gone. He reached out, pressed a single finger to my chest, and suddenly I remembered. We had talked about this. When I was 13, one Halloween night, we went into the woods. Me, Melissa, and Jamie Pike. We found a stone circle, something inside it, something wrong. And we made a pact never to tell. Jamie disappeared 2 days later. Melissa stopped talking, forever, and I forgot. Until now. Now I remember everything. I left the house this morning, not because I found a way out, but because I've become part of it. The road let me go, for a reason, to bring someone back. You. I can hear your breathing now. It's already too late.